So yeah, once again, welcome everyone to the Hug. Today we are talking about pipelines and deals. The Q&A is open, so please go ahead and click on that and start entering your questions for the question period at the end of the session. I am going to drop a couple of housekeeping items in the chat. The chat is also open, so feel free to jump in there. So we have a LinkedIn group. If you're not part of the LinkedIn group, you can click the link to join. I'm going to pop it in the chat in a second. It's where we post upcoming events and the recordings and anything else that we find relevant to the particular session. I'm also going to pop the link to our actual Hug group so you can join the group as a whole, get notified of new events. We have a chat feature on there as well that you can have. And then I'm also going to drop my contact information for you in case you have future questions or anything like that that you would like to have answered. All right. So there are the housekeeping links. Please join the Hug group or the LinkedIn group to keep up with some future announcements of new events. I can tell you now our next event is going to be focused around the inbound or unbound announcements. So a little bit of a departure from the Back to Basics series, but hopefully we're going to still be showing the basics on how to successfully use some of the new features that they announced there. Okay. So like I mentioned, today you only have me as our second host was not able to join. But my name is Erica. I am the Revenue Operations Manager at Flawless Inbound, which is powered by GSI. And I have been working as a HubSpot admin RevOps person for just about 9 years now. And so I have dealt with a lot of pipelines and deals and customization in that area, originally for clients and now internally for our own company as well. So let's get started. Okay, so before I jump in fully to the agenda, I will note one more time that the Q&A is open. Please drop your questions in there. In the last section, we are going to go over those, some maybe real life issues that you have, some roadblocks, something like that. Feel free to pop that into the Q&A or into the chat, and we will get to there then. I'm also going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat during the presentation. So if anything comes up that's particularly relevant, I'll stop there. But the agenda today is just a couple of things, a quick overview of pipeline usage, a couple of common questions about pipelines and deals that we see a lot, and some misconceptions there that we want to answer. And then we'll jump into the demo where we're going to look at quick overview, required fields and rules, deal tags, and this is a special little note I like to call the cross-object workaround, the deal record page, a little bit about automation and forecasting. You will notice two things potentially quote unquote missing here. One of those being the line items and products. We felt that that really deserved its like full own session. There just wasn't time to fit that in to the demo here. So if you do have questions about that, please reach out, but we probably won't get into covering that in depth today. And the second being reporting, definitely requires its own session to look at reports. So we will, if you're interested in a session on line items or line items products and reporting, please let us know. We can look to that in the future. And then we'll pop into the Q&A. All right, so a couple of questions that we want to start with to help you sort of evaluate pipeline usage or how well you're using your pipelines. So a few things we'll think about as we jump into the demo. Firstly, which is in your portal, can you find and understand data? So, and that doesn't mean just you. So when you or a member of your team, and think specifically about team members who are not in the trenches, customizing the deals, customizing the pipelines, and setting them up. The team members may be exec team members, maybe sales users who are not setting up the back end. When they need information about deals or customers or revenue, potentially information that they can't get from a report, do they know where to go and how to find it? And is it intuitive for them to set up filters to get that information? And one of the ways that we can help with that is by creating views and filters and setting up the first look at the deal platform so that it makes it intuitive for them to find the information they want. If there is a field that they are always using, but they have to go searching through advanced filters to find it, then setting them up a view with that field as a column is a pretty quick way to help them find the information that they need. But if everybody's always coming to you every single time they need one piece of data, that can be a little bit confusing. And so it's sometimes easier to take a step back and set up everybody's data views and filters and all of that to start with so that they're not constantly coming to you for all of those little things. The next item is, does your sales team see value? And this is a really big one that we see all the time, which is, does the team that is actually using the pipelines day to day see a good reason to do that? Or do they just think that doing this is adding busy work, adding documentation, and not really helping them with their day to day? Now, there's always going to be points in the sales process that we need sales reps to enter information, even if they don't see the reason or they don't really want to. So things like specific revenue reporting information or required fields for KPIs and things like that, not everybody sees a good reason to be adding those in. And so if it is not something that's going to make their day easier, if it is going to be something that they have to do for reporting purposes, we want to make it as simple as possible for them to enter that information in. Because if they have to go clicking through 5 different fields and opening a bunch of records and searching for stuff just to enter something that they don't really want to enter in the first place, they're going to get frustrated with the platform and with the process, and then they're not going to want to do it anymore. So what we want to do is make the platform help them so that they find it easier to track and move their deals along, but also make sure the things that are required of them are simple to add in and do, so that they don't have to go searching and cause a bunch of delays in their workday when they need to enter that information. And lastly, is, do you have documented processes? So when you onboard a new team member, is there a documented process that they can use to learn your pipeline and deal process? And not just for onboarding new team members, but let's say that you need to get help from a HubSpot partner. Do you have a process documented where you can explain to them what you do today so that they can take that and start improving on it or optimizing it? And do you have a process that you can share when you get questions from maybe an exec level? Like, why do we do this? Or do we not have this set up here? If you can share the process, like a documented process on here's how deals move and here's why deals move, it makes it a lot easier to go through those things. All right. So, a couple of common pipeline questions that I want to answer before we jump into the live demo, which is first one is, how many pipelines do we need? A common misconception is that you need as many pipelines as you have products or services. That may or may not be true. The real answer is that you need as many pipelines as you have unique sales processes or deal stages. So unique deal stages necessitate unique pipelines, because if you're going to use the pipelines as a actual pipeline where you drag deals from one stage to the next, then you got to have the same stages. So if you have 2 different products that have 2 different deal stages, you got to have 2 different pipelines. You might also consider different pipelines if the sales processes are so vastly different that reporting on them is going to be a little bit wonky if you try to keep them in the same place. So if you have maybe 2 different lines of business and you have vastly different close rates, deal velocities, time in stages, things like that, then you might want different pipelines so that your reporting doesn't seem off or isn't hard to understand. But for the most part, you can differentiate things like different products, different services, different lines of business within the same pipeline using properties and filters and views. And then you don't need to clutter up your HubSpot deal or sales section with a ton of pipelines that aren't necessarily required for those things. But the two reasons you would need multiple pipelines: unique deal stages, unique sales processes. All right. So another question we get a lot of is, when should I automate stage changes? And a common thing that we used to hear a lot from clients was like, well, we need to automate everything. We need every single stage to have an automated change. And the real answer is that, in fact, human review and context is still required for certain pipeline decisions. Really great stages for automating are those that don't require any contextual or interpreted information. So contract signed, meeting booked, then though if those things are a stage, then automate it. So it moves to the meeting book stage when a meeting gets booked. That's pretty simple. But if you have stages like interested or ready to buy, it's often best to rely on your sales reps to determine if and when an opportunity is meeting that criteria. And now you can say that things like deal scoring or like lead scoring can help with moving those things along. And that is true, but there comes a time when too much automation does take the power away from your reps, which can lead to mistrust with the tools. If they keep seeing this deal keeps moving into the ready to buy stage, and I've talked to this person and I know that that's not true. They won't be ready until this time. But the scoring keeps saying they are. Then they're not going to trust that the tool actually knows what it's doing or that the automation actually knows what it's doing. And so I think that there are a lot of times when it is still important for that interpreted information to come into play in your pipelines. And the last question is, how much should we customize our pipelines? A common misconception here is that a lot of people assume they need to either fit their sales process into HubSpot's totally default system or build something entirely custom. And the true answer is that while almost everything is customizable, you don't necessarily need to customize everything. You also don't need to squeeze your process into what's there already. With custom automations, you can make pretty much any process work. But before you start custom building, try asking, are there any defaults, any pre-set up things that are actually usable or beneficial to our team that will actually make our process simpler or that our team will want to use? Because sometimes relying on what's already available can mean faster implementation and also less upkeep down the road. A fully custom automation system is awesome, but if it breaks, is there someone who can quickly and with a full understanding fix that? Because if not, then it might be necessary to have some of the defaults in place so that those are simpler for like support or something else to troubleshoot for you. Okay. Let's see, is there anything in chat? I do see one message in the chat about, yeah, extra sessions regarding reporting. Absolutely. So yeah, we can go over a reporting session as well. I can drop that into the upcoming Hug agenda. I think that that's a really good one, especially when it comes to attribution reporting. We know that is a big ask from a lot of people. All right, so we're going to hop into the live demo now. I'm going to change my screen share. Please continue using the chat and the Q&A if you do have any questions come up. If I can get out of my, nope, it's not Q&A yet. I need to get out of my screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so the deals section is here. So we're going to start the live demo with a little bit of an overview of deals. And if this screen looks unfamiliar to you, that is because this is the new record page layout. So this is our demo portal. All of this data is made up, but this is the new view. So you may or may not have also joined this beta. But I think it's important that we have a look at it as well because there are a lot of things that have changed. So I'm not sure if anybody wants to drop in if they have joined this beta, if you've joined this beta or this view. I see Stephanie has joined this one. That is, if anyone has any feedback on it or what you think of it so far, that would be awesome. But this is the new view. This is what all of the record pages are going to look like going forward. So they have changed a few things. You will notice that, for example, the export, the save, the clone button is all down here rather than at the top. And then you have a lot of your settings in here where you can change the table settings and all of the sorting and stuff. And also you have cloning and stuff again up here for sharing is all in the settings tab now. And then one thing that I do want to point out that has moved to the settings tab that some people find a little bit difficult to find is that the edit columns is in here under table settings. So we have had some questions about edit columns. Where did that go? It's up here. So you can find that in the view settings. But yes, if you haven't seen this, that's not really related to this hug, but an important update that this is what this is going to look like. I believe end of August, everybody is going to be put onto this new system. All right. So the deals screen. This is the deals overview. We'll get into the tags in a moment, but this is where I'm talking about having stuff set up for your team members to find the things that they need and quickly. So one of the things that we really like to create for all of our sales reps and all of our exec teams is their views up at the top. So there are views that come default with HubSpot, like my deals, which just shows you as the deal owner. But you can set up custom views, and this is one that we really like, which is my deals that are closing soon. And this one says my, but you can use people's names. And basically what that is just deals that belong to you, which is missing from the view, but deals that belong to you that will be closing in less than whatever number of days is most relevant to your business. But we're looking at 2 weeks out, and this is helpful to sales reps who can go in and look. If you want to leave out certain things, like obviously you can see there's a closed one deal here. Well, this one closed early. I don't need to see that in my closed one view. So you can go to things like is closed one or is deal closed, any of these fields you can look at. I know this is a number property. So we want this to be 0 because that means that it is not closed. And then that one went away. So we can add that to the view and save it. And now this has been updated. And then you can see the deal owner, not always me. So you can always change that and then save that as well. So this can be a like quick filter that you create for anybody who has a specific set of deals that they want to come in and look at. And then they can look at it however they want. They can look at it as a table, they can look at it as a board. The filters will still apply, which is really helpful. So we always recommend creating everybody who comes in and looks at deals, the filters that they need to do their day-to-day there. The other thing that we recommend doing is, oops, I don't made me change from that, is in the board view, customizing these items. So you can set up the custom, like what you see here. And this is really helpful to the team who's looking at them again as well, because they can, especially if you're using the board view, because if, for example, the create day doesn't matter to you, then you can set a different field there or change the way that it's viewed. And so that's a good question. You can also go through all of these items down here, which I find really useful in order to quickly pull up some items. The preview is a good one. So you can do that. And we'll get into customizing all the records when we jump into the settings. So I will explain that as well. The other views that you have are calendar views. So if you do prefer to see things when they're coming up in terms of tasks and stuff, we don't have that set up in the demo portal, unfortunately, so can't show you that. Same as the Gantt view, that's going to be a similar thing. And then the reporting view, we also don't have set up, but is going to pull up some reports, for example, on some of your deal tags, which can be quite useful, but I'll get to that when I get to tags. All right. Oh, the views to be different based on pipelines. Yeah. So you can pipeline, so I see there's a question in there about how to customize the preview or record view to be different on different pipelines. Um, So, yes, we can touch on that. All right. So, to customize it based on different pipelines, you will need to create a separate view. So you can't I'm going to go to the table because I find that easier to understand. Um you can't customize the all deals view. This is HubSpot's default view. Um, so you can do the filter on it like currently where you can change the pipeline, but you that won't stick because all deals is all deals. But you can create a separate view for separate pipelines. So for example, you could go to add a view. You can change it to whatever. And then you could call it like whatever. And have like a view for, oh, I didn't save that. Uh, Maybe click the little thing. There we go. All right, so you can change that to be different by different pipelines. So you can add that in the advanced filter as well. So the pipeline is up here, but you can also put the pipeline in here. So if you search up pipeline, you can also drop any of them in there. So you can go like that. And then add whatever other filters that you want. This is like an all deals one, so we don't need to add anything else. And then if you want the columns to be different, you can do that. So you can go into the settings and the table settings and edit the columns and then add in anything else that you want. Um, I don't know, whatever. Um, That wouldn't make sense, but add in any columns that you want, apply that, and then when you save it, that will only, they're all down here now, that will only save for that view. So the columns will be different for your different views based on what you have saved. So basically, what I would recommend is creating a view for the each individual pipeline with however you want it, editing the columns, saving it there. So then that's how you pop through it. And you can always change the order. So if all deals is not actually relevant to you, if the different pipeline ones are relevant to you, then keep those up here instead. All right, I see another couple of questions. Um, I see. I'm gonna respond to the other the preview of the actual deal. Oh, good question. Okay, yes, understood, Haley. I'll get back to that one. Um, Yes, and the quick filter, you can definitely do that as well. So Liz has said for pipeline swaps, she added that as a quick filter here. So yeah, you can add pipeline. It's up here now, which is a little bit different on this view, but you can add pipeline as a quick filter up here for client for people to use, and then there it's easy for them to find it right there as well. And I do see a question from Allison. I'm going to read that one in the Q&A section if that's all right. It looks a little bit longer. All right. So, then any other notes on the sort of overview portion of it? I'll talk about required fields and rules because that is a big one. Okay. So Required fields and rules is something that is really important to a lot of teams, and it is one of the ways that you can make sure that required information is being entered at different stages. So what required fields is, and I'll jump into board view because it's easiest to see in this, is when you drag a deal from one stage to another, or when you move it, regardless of where you are, if you're in the deal record, if you're in the table view, if you're in the board view, and you pull this over here, this is going to pop up. And this is a required field. So in this case, what we have here is that in order to be in the qualification stage, you have to have an inside sales rep. So once you add that, I'll add my colleague Antoine, that deal moves over here. And so you can set those up for all of the stages. Some of the most common ones are obviously reasons for closed lost and closed won. We always recommend a closed lost reason field as a required field so that when somebody tries to move a deal to closed lost, they have to say why. That can be open text, that can be a set of drop downs that you have, whatever works, but it is a really good way to do an analysis on why deals are maybe not closing or where they're being lost to. That's going to come in handy for you when you are reporting later on. Um, there are a couple of other ones that we usually recommend. Date fields if there are meeting bookings, and this isn't happening automatically. So if you don't have deals automatically moving to meeting booked when a meeting gets booked, if you're relying on manual moving, we suggest a like a date field for when the meeting was booked. One of the things that we have done recently that people have liked that is not actually set up on this, but is a review list of properties in the final stage. So when you open up, when you dump a deal into the last stage before closed won, so whatever the maybe final thing is, or even in closed won if you want to, we put every property that is required back on there so that sales reps can check them over. So every single field that they needed for a deal in order to properly close it comes back up on the record. That could be 10, 15 fields. They should all already be entered, so this should only be a review for them, so they can review them all there. It just makes it simple for them to review them because they're all just in one section. All right, but setting up that required fields and other rules, you'll notice the approval one here, which we can talk about as well, is going to be in your settings. So thankfully, when you jump into settings, it'll be already in here. But if you come over into pipelines, and then you want to grab the pipeline that you're actually using. All right, so this is where you set up your conditional logic rules and your general pipeline rules as well. So to set up the general conditional rules, it's just a simple click here, and this is not going to make sense because this is the first stage. But you just click on add rule, and then you can add any like other properties that you want. So we have when deal state is equal to qualification in this pipeline, we want to select a property and drop that in. So let's say that now we require them to also put in the close date. And that's going to be required. You can make it required or not. If it's like an optional field, you can also have that, but we're going to add that one in there as well. And why doesn't this want to let me save it? Oh, we got to do it from the existing section, which is going to take a minute to load. Okay. Then we'll add that in there. So let's go to, what did I say? Close date. So we can drop in a close date, make that required, and then save that there as well. That's going to be in properties. I don't necessarily love we can't add it from this section, that we have to go back to the other one. It would be nice to be able to drop them in from here as well. But it is easy to click on once you open it here, so that's all right. The approval stages. So approval rules means that when a deal is not able to move to this stage without being approved by someone else. So basically, a sales rep can try to move a deal from meeting booked to pending approval, from meeting booked to proposal. but they're going to have to pass through this approval stage first. So you can change the name of this. It doesn't have to be called pending approval, but we can, if I could spell, but we can add whatever we want here. And this approval is a custom setup from the pipeline rules section. And the way that you do that is you select the stage that you want the approval to be on, and then you select any conditions that that has. So in our case, we are looking at, in this example, that either this due diligence that we need to do complete on deals has not been completed, or we don't know if it's been completed. And in that case, we need those deals to be approved. You can set this to all deals, or you can set up any of those specific conditions. But just note that when you do change it, it does not apply to previous ones. So then we're going to add our approvers. So that is who can approve the deals. You can set up anybody who will approve that specific rule. So you can have different approvers for different rules. And then you can decide whether you need to require approval from everybody or just one of these, or just anybody from them. So this is a good way to set up a couple of different ones, put on any one, and then it doesn't matter who approved it as long as somebody did. You can also have a note for the approvers, which is explaining why they need to look at and approve that deal. Of course, they can always decide not to approve the deal, in which case it would go back to the person who tried to move it, so the sales rep, and tell them that your deal was not approved, and they would be able to say why when they are not approving it, and it could be like, you didn't finish completing this. And so then that can be added there. So you can see all the stuff. I won't make any changes. But that is the approvals, and a lot of people find approvals to be quite useful, especially because you can customize them. So I think maybe previously, or maybe it was just a common misconception, that it had to be all deals. People were like, well, I don't need all deals to be approved, only the ones that don't have this info, or only the ones that are above this amount, or whatever. And so you can customize which deals need to be approved. Any other deal can simply skip this stage or can move right past it quickly. So you don't actually have to put, like, the approval request won't go out for every deal. We can also add a couple of other rules in here. This is totally dependent on your sales process and how you want it to work, but this is where you also add other rules. So this one I almost always have on if I have set up required fields throughout the pipeline, because usually what I want is only to allow my sales reps to create deals in the first stage. And that's because I have set up custom rules in here of fields they need to enter. If they, for example, create a deal in the meeting booked stage, then they've already skipped this, and now this information won't be entered. So you need to, if you want them to go through a set of required fields, you need to turn on limit to specific stages in order to make that happen. We've got restrict from skipping. Can they not? Oh, good question. I see a question from Lori. Approvals is locked. I recently upgraded to Sales Hub Professional. Is it only at Enterprise, or is it a setting? That is a good question. I will have to look into that for you. I am actually not sure where approvals lies. Normally I would have my co-host look that up. We'll have to do that at the end. Restrict deals from moving backwards and control editing access. I will get you an answer though, Lori. Okay. So, automation. Automation is the other section where you can customize how your deals move in the pipeline. We have a couple of preset automations. This one I really like. Set the close date to today when a deal gets moved to closed. So that means that when a deal is closed, the close date is the date that it was closed. That makes a lot of sense. However, if you have like close dates and you want to keep the one that they estimated originally and not the like actual one or whatever, you don't have to turn that on. But I do usually have this turned on almost everybody because it's most common to want the close date to be the date the deal actually closed. So then the other automation is clear the close date when moving it backwards from close to open. Typically, we restrict backward movement, so I don't usually have this turned on, but you can have it the close date to clear if a deal goes from closed and opens up again for whatever reason. If that is a part of your process, you can do that. We don't always recommend having deals that are allowed to move back out of closed. Usually, we say open up a new deal, and that's just because we don't want to create confusion with any reporting or analytics that is saying like this many deals closed, but then that one's actually not closed, or closed revenue and then it's no longer closed revenue. And it can cause some confusion for people who are reviewing that kind of reporting. But I digress. You can turn it on if you do allow that. The workflows are here. So this is a good place to come in and set up a basic workflow for an automation that happens, maybe a task creation, maybe a reminder email, things like that. You can get pretty advanced in the workflow section, but I do think that a really good way to start with some simple automation is in here. So let's say that when a deal reaches the qualification stage, we want to set up a task for the sales rep to do some research. So what we need to do here is click on add something, and then you are brought into basically your workflow editor. If you're not familiar with workflows, we did have a back to basics sessions on workflows earlier this year. You can find the recording on our Hug page or on our YouTube as well, also in the LinkedIn group. So I can share that as well if you are interested, but you can find it all over the place if you aren't familiar with the basics of workflows. So task is a recommended one because that's pretty typical for a deal stage. So we'll go to create a task. You will just set up all of the emo. You just set up all of the tasks here. You can say that the task is starts immediately and it is due 3 days after it's created at 8 a.m. You can always change that. You can change business days only. And then you can also send an email reminder after the task is created, so in the next day, and at 8 a.m. as well. You can leave notes, and of course, you can add it to your queues and your priorities, etc., and send it up to the owner. There's also subtasks now, which is very fun. We did talk about subtasks in our Back to Basics series on the projects object. So if you are interested in that, you can check that one out as well. And then we'll hit save. And now we have a task going out every time a deal gets into that stage. I often get asked about moving deal stages. I would recommend doing that one through the workflows because this is basically using this deal stage as a trigger. So something already has to be in this stage in order to, like, for adding the plus here to work. So like the trigger of this workflow is that when a deal reaches qualification stage. So you can't say move to qualification in here because the trigger's already that it's already in there. So I would recommend using workflows if you want to automate the moving of stages. And so I just clicked on that, but it's going to start this. But let's say, oh no, I can't edit it. But let's say that we want to move it out. This doesn't make sense. I should have clicked on the one before. But let's say we want to move it into a new stage if a certain condition is met here. So it enters this stage, and then we'll do something like check whether or not there is a meeting booked. So we can pop in here. We can look for on the contact record if they have a meeting booked. Is meetings its own thing still? No. Whoops. So we can check if they've recently booked a meeting, whatever. And then after that, if they have done that, we can move the deal stage. And so the way to move the deal stage is with the edit record. So we'll go into edit record. We're editing the current type. And then we are going to grab the stage, which is called deal pipeline and stage. We're going to replace it with the new one. And so then you're going to want to look for whatever stage you want. This is also, and sometimes I get asked this on how to move a deal. So from one pipeline to another one. So we do sometimes have people with different pipelines, and they're like, "Hey, we created this deal in this pipeline," and then the client changed their mind. They want a different product or service. We have a different pipeline for that. How do I move it? You're gonna have to do it this way. Thank you, Matea, answering the enterprise question. Um, so this is how you will have to move the deal to another pipeline. If you do things like a renewal pipeline, and at the end of the renewal pipeline, the deal at the end of the actual pipeline, the deal moves out of there and into a renewal pipeline, or client changes their mind, we change a type and now it's got to move. This is how you would do that. You'd set up your branches that indicate when a deal should move to a different pipeline, and then you will go and change the stage and the pipeline from here. So that's how you'll do that. If you do just want to move it to, I do it to say, what was it in? If you do just want to move it to a different stage of the current pipeline, you'll just search that up there. And then when you turn that on, that will move. This is a workflow tip, but of course, this is on because I created it from the deal side. But it will only apply to future ones. But just be aware if you're creating it from scratch, not from the actual pipeline settings. When you turn it on, make sure to only apply it to future deals so that all of your existing stuff doesn't move around. But you'll see information about that in the workflow session. All right, so we'll jump back into settings. Okay. I don't see anything in the Q&A. I know I have the one question from before, so I will keep going here, and we will talk about deal tags. Deal tags, you'll notice something when we were talking about required fields, and that is that you can only set up the required fields on your, so we'll go here, I'll go add rule. Okay, so when we go to add a dependent property, what comes up here is deal properties. And we get this question all the time, which is, I need a company property to be filled out when the deal reaches X stage. And so one thing you can do is create sync fields. So you can have like a company and deal sync field that syncs that information across so that you can like enter it in the deal and then it syncs to the company. But then here you won't know whether or not like it's necessarily already filled out. There can be difficulties with that information. So like you create the field on the deal side that matches the company one, you sync the information over. But how do you know like whether or not it's already filled out? And so my recommendation and my solution for this is to use deal tags as a workaround for cross-object required fields. So one thing that we have set up is things like, is it missing the company phone number? So let's say you require a phone number for your companies to be in place when a deal reaches a certain stage. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Finance team can't access the company. They can't do whatever they need to do to verify it, etc. So we need to have a company phone number. So we'll manage the deal tags and I'll show you how we set these up because you can do this cross-object. So we want a description, we want to apply it only to the pipelines that we need, and then we have our filters. And in here, you have the cross-object capability. So you can see that we have decided that the deal is associated to any company and the phone number is unknown. So basically, when you add one here, you jump into what you're filtering on and you change it to the other record. So let's say, well, we could do an or. Either the company or the contact has no phone number, right? Then we need to add them. So we'll change it back to contact. We'll go here. We'll look for their phone number. And phone number is unknown. So now we either have no company phone number or no contact phone number. And I know that that's now the wrong title, but that's okay. So we'll save that. We change it red. Yeah, the tag. So I see a question from Stephanie. Is there a way to clear the tags after the deal has been updated? Yes, they will clear if they no longer meet the criteria. So once you change something, then the tag won't be there anymore. Basically, because it's live. So if they meet the criteria, the tag's there. They don't, tag's not there. So we can see what that looks like. Except for that Zoom is in the way up here. Okay, we can see what that looks like back on the deals section. So you might have seen it when we were reviewing before, which is here. So this is a company. When you hover over it, you see the description. That's why it's important to put that in. You can add instructions in the description. It's a little bit of a workaround to explain what it means. But I just said this deal does not have a company phone number. Now, the tags can't necessarily be used for like required fields because that's not something you can access, but it is a flag, so it's not a way to actually stop people. Like this doesn't actually stop them from moving the deal stage, but it will stay there as a big red flag, and it will be here. And it will also be, you can add deal tags as it was on the board view, and it will also be here um, in the, um, like you can add it up here, deal tags as a property. So you can add it into the about this deal section as well. So you can add that there. Yeah, exactly. So I see from Lori, to see things on, this is cool to see the things right on the board. I would expect maybe it's more important as the deal progresses. At an early stage, it's okay not to have the phone number correct. So, as a personal example, we require a company location on our deals. Sorry about that. We require a company location to be on our deals when they reach the stage in which our team is going to be looking at the legitimacy of the company. So we have a legal team who's checking to make sure the company is real and everything like that. And so they need to have their actual address. And so we don't need that when you open the deal. We don't need it if the deal opened and then it immediately closed, but we do need it if the deal reaches the stage where they're going to be interacting with a contract. And so therefore, we have the tags start popping up in the stage or two before that happens. So it's really useful to see it. You can see it on any way that you view the board. They're going to automatically be there. You have to add the deal tags here if you use the table view. You have to add that column, but you can, in the board view, they're going to be here already. So you are able to have that there. All right. So I know we are getting close on time here, so I do have forecast as well, but I do want to make sure I get to the questions. So there was a question regarding customizing the deals. So I'm gonna just jump into that. You can set up the customization in here, so the actual properties, and then I think it's this one. No, that's the preview index. Um, so you can set up a bunch of different customizations here. You have the actual record page. So this is where you set up like the layout of the record page. This is where you set up the preview, which is the preview cards that appear outside of the CRM. So when you click on like preview um, and like the app, that's going to be just a list as well, but it's the same. And then of course, the index. Um, so this is a default of how you can view all of the different like views. So you can set this up for everybody. So like if you want everybody to have these filters, you can set those up so that's what everybody sees when they start. And then, well, that's too complicated. This is not back to basics. Don't click on that. So then we'll get to the settings here. And now the new, okay. Here's the question. How do you customize those cards now? It used to be here. I will find that for you. But it used to be that you could customize the cards from here. And now I am actually not sure where you do that. I'm gonna look into that in a second. Okay, I'm gonna answer the other question first. So I saw a question earlier from Allison. It says, we have multiple contracts and disclosures that have to be delivered as companies move through our pipeline. I've been using a checkbox to mark the disclosures as sent, and then then the main contract as signed, it manually moves steps to onboarding. Is there a better way to show those minor steps of progress? They have to happen every deal. Um, hmm. A checkbox to mark the disclosure is sent, then when the main and that's a good question. I might need to think on that one actually, because I'm not sure. What do you mean by manually move steps? Like there's an automation that sets those all up? Or like when the main contract is signed, you manually move them. Okay. Um, are you able to use like a pipeline automation there where like you have a setup for um like create a deal in the onboarding and then move them over like that? Yeah, I wonder if you could use like we were just using like the move stages and then set up automations based on that. You could have like create a deal. So if it has to create a new deal for whatever reason, feel free to reach out if you want a little bit more detailed information as well. But I think that you could probably set up a workflow that moves the things that you need when the deal reaches the specific stage or when that checkbox is checked. I would say probably when the checkbox for disclosure sent is checked, you could then have a workflow that, yeah, you could have everybody. Yeah, I probably have like 1,000. You can have a workflow that then was like, okay, then set up a new deal or set a deal stage and then add all of these properties to that deal or and then send this out or set up a task to send this out, whatever. That might be a way you could do it. Okay, I am just going to pop into the slides for 1 second. I know I still need to answer the custom question for the deal thing, but I have in fact lost that button in the new setup. So apologies for that. But I do want to just let you guys know that some of our Sales Enablement Hub members are going to be at Unbound, Inbound, Unbound this year. If you're also attending and you want to chat, let me know. This is not an official meetup. We don't have enough people going to organize one of those. But just if you want to connect, do the badge scan thing, go ahead and let me know. I'd be happy. I'll be there. So I'll be happy to just connect and say hello while you're there as well. But we'll have a couple of team members there for that if you want to get in touch, but we are not unfortunately having a real meetup this year. Um, Otherwise, thank you so much for being here today. I got the code again for our LinkedIn. You can also find it up earlier in the chat. I will answer a couple of additional questions. I know that I need to answer the question about customizing the actual card views per a pipeline, and then I will see if I have any better answers to Allison's question as well. But please feel free to reach out at any time on the LinkedIn group, on the actual Hug group, or by sending me an email. My email is up at the beginning of the chat. I don't know if I can actually pin that. but you can. Oh yeah, I can. So I just pinned that up there so you can find those links if you need them. And like I said before, our next hug is going to be an inbound, unbound overview. Keep an eye on your email. The invite for that should be coming out fairly soon, although we don't yet know what the actual updates or topics are going to be because we won't find out until inbound or unbound, but it will be happening shortly after that, so mid to late September. Yeah. It's a great surprise to find out what we're going to be presenting on 1 week before we're going to be presenting on it, but it's always fun to get some opinions from everybody who is here. So again, thank you so much for all of that. I apologize for having only one of me on today, but hopefully you were still able to get some back to basics on your deals, and we look forward to seeing you at the next hug. Have a great day.